All right. So, as I said before, I'm Carrie McKinnon of Solvang Library, and this is Sweet and Savory Cooking Conversations. And here with us today is Chef Louise Smith, AKA the Cheesecake Lady. Hi, Louise.
Hi, Carrie.
So Louise Smith founded Louise's Kitchen Table, which is here in Solvang, in 2004. And her many culinary adventures have included working as the executive chef at the only 5-diamond AAA-rated bed and breakfast in North America. I want to hear more about that. And as a private chef to numerous families all over California, as a cooking instructor, a caterer, a wine and food pairing consultant. So welcome, Louise.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm delighted to be here. This is fantastic. So
great. Well, so the first thing we want to know is just tell us a little bit about how you got started cooking. Did you know that you wanted to be a chef at a really young age, or did you have some other career planned and you veered off? Tell us how this happened for you.
I could keep you here for an hour telling you the story, but yes, I've always been interested in cooking. My family, we came from England when I was just a child and moved to California. And I have to say my mother was not a good chef. She was not very good in the kitchen. Fabulous at everything else. So just God rest her soul. She's an amazing woman. And I just really wanted to learn more about cooking. Growing up, we pretty much ate everything out of a box or a bag or a can. And the real challenge came when we were living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was about 15 years old. And my mom had to entertain my father's executives. And she put me to the task of making dessert. She said, you need to serve, you need to help me, I don't know what I'm doing, and I need you to make a dessert. And I said, well, the only thing I know how to make is chocolate chip cookies. And she said, well, that won't do, you have to do something else. So scouring through, Gourmet magazine and the various magazines that were available back then, I found a cheesecake recipe. And I decided to make a cheesecake, and it was good, but it didn't look very good. So we just sort of slathered it in fruit, which of course came from a bag. So it was frozen fruit. And the guests were amazing. They were very complimentary, but honestly, it just wasn't what it could have been. So that kind of got me started. And so I was on this quest to be able to make the perfect cheesecake, and it went on from there.
Wow, but you were pretty, hard on yourself at 15.
Absolutely, yes.
That's fantastic. So, okay, wow, so many things to ask you. Let's start out with just a little background. Tell me about that AAA-rated bed and breakfast. How old were you then? Were you 16 at least by then?
Oh no, so this it's called the Simpson House, and it is in Santa Barbara. And it's an amazing bed and breakfast. And I was looking for doing some kind of chef work, was not currently working as a chef, and found this opportunity to start working on the weekends as their executive chef. It's a beautiful location, beautiful facility, and I had the privilege of getting the job. And it was getting there at 5 in the morning and preparing a breakfast for, I think they had 12 rooms, and having breakfast ready for between 6:30 and 8:30 on the weekends. And what was interesting about this bed and breakfast is it was vegetarian. So we didn't have any meat, which was challenging, but it sort of blossomed from there, and I was able to work a little bit more than just the weekends, and it was the most incredible experience. Learned so much, had because of its status, there were a lot of local chefs that wanted to sort of be featured there. So I had the opportunity to work with some private chefs for Michael Douglas's private chef, Oprah's private chef, all came in and I was able to sort of learn from them.
Wow.
It was really amazing. So although it was a bed and breakfast and I was doing the breakfast every day, we also had like the happy hour and where we would offer wine and I would prepare appetizers. So I got really into doing more finger foods. So it was an absolutely incredible experience. And I'm so grateful to the staff and owners of that place. It's amazing. And they've kept their rating. It's still a 5-diamond rated bed and breakfast.
Wow. So cool. So, and did you go to chef school? I'm going back to, and for those of you who just joined us, we're having a conversation with Chef Louise Smith. Welcome. And I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. You were 15 and got inspired with cheesecakes, and then suddenly we found ourselves at the 5-diamond place. But did you go to chef school in between there?
I did not. I am self-taught.
Wow.
And again, I think because of the growing up, we grew up in California, moved around, but again, my mother not being the greatest cook in the kitchen, I really wanted to learn more about real food. When I was growing up, it was back in the 60s and 70s, and there was Chef Boyardee, the equivalent of Hamburger Helper. So my mother loved ground beef, so we would have ground beef with some kind of packaged additive. And so it was, I got very tired of having everything from a box or a bag or a can. And when I went off to experiment with the cheesecakes as a teenager, but then when I went off to college, I really started learning more about food and whole food and real food and produce and things that you actually chop and you put things together. So the creativity really did start when I was in college.
Great. Wow. So do you have a food philosophy per se right now? Is there
Well, I think, I mean, we've really been moving towards more of a local and organic, and I'm still trying to work with other chefs and other, farmers markets and organic farms to try to make the cost a little bit easier on people, because I think organic food has been pretty expensive, so it's been out of reach for a lot of families. But I absolutely believe in shopping locally and supporting our local farmers. I know that's not always possible, especially here in the Valley. We don't have a lot available to us, so we end up going, to Santa Barbara or Santa Maria. But I really do believe in trying to support the local farmers, and so that's what I try to work with. And the one thing that I'm having a lot of fun with are like sheet pan meals, because I know we are all busy and we have so much, that we're juggling, we're spinning so many plates in the air. But the sheet pan meals are you put everything on a sheet pan, your protein, your vegetables, mix it with some olive oil and throw it in the oven, and 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour later, you've got dinner.
I love that idea. Only I have to get somebody else to put it all on the sheet pan. That's where you come in. So I do want to get into those lovely details about your cheesecakes, but before that, can you tell everybody really quickly just what Louise's Kitchen is doing now?
Absolutely. So I did find, I founded Louise's Kitchen Table in 2004, and the focus was mostly on catering and private chef work. And I really love doing that, going into somebody's home and preparing a meal for their party, their anniversary, the birthday, special occasion. So we've been focusing on that for obviously the last, 16 years or so. But I also have to go at the Castle, which is a takeout service on the weekends that we're trying to offer cuisine that is not available in the Valley. Thai food, Chinese food, Indian food, Peruvian food, something that we just don't have available. With the pandemic hitting, that has certainly really crimped the business of catering and private chef work. So we've really focused on doing more meal preparation and more pickup. Like you can come down to my kitchen and pick up meals. You can pick up our takeout, which we do on weekends. So we're kind of we've been reinventing ourselves. And then now that things are opening up, we are seeing a real surge back with the interest in catering and doing the private chef work. So we're excited about that.
Wonderful. Cool. Okay. So for those of you who came in a little later also, this part's being recorded. And at some point I will stop so that some of you who are participating can unmute and turn your cameras on and we can have more of an interactive conversation. But first, I really want to hear about the Cheesecake Secrets. And now I personally am scared to make a cheesecake. I love cooking, but it's not something I've ever done. I'm sure that I'm going to do something wrong or it will be runny. Or tell us how to make a great cheesecake.
Oh, there are so many secrets. So when when my mom asked me to make a special dessert for this special dinner back when I was a teenager, I found a recipe for cheesecake, and I believe the first words in the description of making it were, most people are afraid to make a cheesecake because it's so complicated. So I understand that, and I'm like, well, that's a challenge. So we gotta get over this and try to make it happen. I guess some of the real secrets for cheesecake making are bringing your ingredients to room temperature. I think what happens is a lot of cheesecakes will crack or they'll be too soft, but you really need to make sure that all of your ingredients are at room temperature. So bring out that cream cheese, bring out the eggs, bring out the sour cream, whatever the ingredients are for that recipe, and just let it sit for a few hours, several hours. And then one of the other secrets is when you're mixing the batter, you add the eggs separately. Don't just dump them all in at once. You want to make sure they get incorporated and not too much. And another thing is, like, I know a lot of the recipes require a springform pan. I have like a mini one here. I don't know if you can see that, but a springform. So cute. I know these. I have all sorts of different sizes, but a springform pan is basically one that the bottom comes out. So you have the pan together. You put your ingredients in it, and then when it's done, you just sort of pop this.
Oh wow!
And then you've got your cheesecake on here, and that's definitely great for making cheesecakes at home. But for my purposes, I use what they call a bottomless pan, and the bottom just sort of pops out. I don't know what you can see.
Yeah. So there's no spring. It just,
there's no spring.
The weight of the batter keeps it down there.
Exactly.
Huh.
Yeah. So this is what I use, and you can get these through professional baking sites, because these are commercial grade. But a springform pan is fine. But those are just sort of the two options. You really don't want to make a cheesecake in just a regular cake pan, because you're not going to be able to get it out. That's going to be impossible. And that's the neat thing about cheesecakes is that you want to make sure it just comes out nice and even. So you want to use either a springform or what they call a bottomless pan.
Wow.
So those are some secrets.
Okay.
And I think the other thing is to be patient with the cheesecake, is you don't want to overmix it. Once you get it in the pan and you get it in the oven, you want it to cook at a relatively low temperature. And usually they take about 50 to 75 minutes, depending on the recipe. And then it's going to be a little jiggly in the middle, and you don't want that to scare you. Because if you keep cooking it, it's going to start cracking and breaking. And so even if it's a little bit jiggly, trust it, and then you can pull it out and it will continue cooking and it will just sort of settle, and then you'll avoid any cracks.
Okay, so the basic ingredients for a cheesecake are obviously the cream cheese, eggs, what else?
So sugar, and usually some vanilla extract. And then one of my secrets for my New York cheesecake is lemon. So just a little bit of lemon. So my basic cheesecake is the batter is 5 ingredients. And then the crust typically for a cheesecake is just ground graham crackers and butter and sometimes a little bit of sugar. And of course I add walnuts, which gives it an extra little texture and depth. So my classic New York cheesecake recipe, I will not give up, not yet. But I do have a raspberry swirl cheesecake recipe that is on my website. And if anybody wants a recipe, they can email me or text me, and I'm more than happy to share that with all the appropriate directions.
Yes, directions. We need directions. Wait, now what about those recipes you see that say no bake cheesecake? Is that bad?
That's not bad, but that's, I mean, those are just more simple. They're easy to do, and yeah, they're definitely not as scary. Personally, I don't think the flavor is there. I don't think the texture is there, but that's an easy start. If you're a beginner, cheesecake maker, feel free to do those.
But there can't be eggs in those, right? Because you've got to cook an egg. No.
Yeah.
So it's just cream, right?
Right.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Wow. So what's the craziest cheesecake recipe you've ever made when you've experimented?
Well, I do have a number of different cheesecakes that I make routinely, but I have to say a long time ago, a dear friend of mine who actually is my accountant, but we've known each other for 35 years. She is a true lover of chocolate and peanut butter. So she wanted a peanut butter cheesecake, and I had no idea how to make that happen. So I decided to go with a chocolate wafer, cookie crust with a little bit of sugar and butter. And peanut butter is a little bit softer than cream cheese, but I thought maybe if I did half cream cheese and half peanut butter. So I experimented with that, and I came up with a great recipe, and my accountant loved it. So I do make a peanut butter cheesecake, and it's got a little bit of nice confectioners or powdered sugar on the top. So that was the craziest.
That sounds fantastic. Hey, so I just want to invite anyone who wants to ask a question while we're on the cheesecake subject. Does anyone have anything they want to ask? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Otherwise, I have more questions for Louise.
I think Mark unmuted himself.
Mark.
I did actually, Louise. I was curious, what optional crusts do you use in a cheesecake?
So the classic, good question. The classic is the graham crackers. I've also used the gluten-free graham crackers, which work beautifully. There is a marbled pumpkin cheesecake that I make. So I use ginger snaps, and the chocolate wafer cookies are fine. And you could just use, almonds or ground almonds or walnuts, but they kind of need a little bit of a binding material. So using graham crackers does help with that.
I have to imagine that it also depends on what your filling is, as to which one of those you might choose.
Of course.
And For me, the nuts are not acceptable because my wife's allergic to them. So that's something I can't use.
Right, right.
Anyway, thank you.
Sure, of course, my pleasure.
So, besides cheesecake, what is your favorite food to cook, Louise?
Yeah, you know, so many people ask me that question, and it's really hard to answer because I love just playing with food. I enjoy working with salmon and halibut, and I tend to, I like sauces. I love aiolis and just different sauces. So a lot of times, and when I mentioned doing like the sheet pan meals, is I'll do salmon just with olive oil and lemon, and then I'll cut up a bunch of different vegetables, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, onions, carrots, whatever. Toss everything in olive oil, throw it in the oven, and then make an aioli. And an aioli is mayonnaise based with lemon and butter, of course, and garlic, and that's lovely as like a dipping sauce. You love grilling halibut and making a beautiful tomato, caper, basil sauce to go with that. So I definitely like to have some kind of sauce with the foods I make, but it's a hard question to answer. I just love food. I love experimenting with it and just working with whatever is in my refrigerator.
Great. Wow. So this was a question that came from a staff member here at the library who is very interested in whether when you develop a recipe, and I think I know how you're going to answer this, but do you edit yourself based on what you think the diner or the market wants, or do you just follow your own tastes and make the diners follow you?
Excellent question. Excellent. I tend to go with my instincts and go with my taste. And over the years, I found that people will share with me what they like or didn't like. So I kind of just trust my instincts with that. And then I've gotten some incredible feedback, and the diners will say, we want it spicier, or we want it less salt or more salt or whatever. So I think with all the years of experience I've had, I can trust what I'm making, and the majority of people seem to really enjoy it, and then I can always tweak it to their particular needs. But yeah, I think I just got to go with my instincts.
Great. Wow. So is there a personal dish that you love to make, but you wouldn't serve?
You know, Carrie, I knew you were going to ask me that. So my family came from England, and you know, my parents were born in the 1929, 1930. So lived in bomb shelters, lived on rations. Food was just a staple. Food was just something to keep you going. It was not cuisine. It was not something to enjoy. And I think coming from England, my parents didn't have a great palate, and a lot of the food that they ate was, I call it the beige food, you know, bread and just potatoes, everything beige. And one of my father's favorite meals, which I actually made for myself the other night, is beans on toast.
Oh.
So, and I added the poached egg, so I kicked it up a notch. And that was dinner, and my father loved it, and we would have it once a week. And it's basically a piece of toast with butter and baked beans. You can, if you want to do barbecue beans, baked beans, or you have a special kind of bean you like, it's fine, but canned baked beans with a poached egg on top, salt and pepper, and you've got dinner. I will never make that for anybody else in the world, but it is, every so often I will make it, and I actually had that for dinner the other night.
It sounds like a real comfort food.
Absolutely. It's a real comfort food.
Wow, that's great. Anybody else? Any questions? Louise, will you give everybody your website address? And then what I'll do is I'll stop the recording and then open it up to us just being able to interact. So, but
Sure.
first, would you give, just for the recording for later, this will be up on our YouTube. Let's have your website. Can you just say it to us?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's a little complicated, but it's www.louiseskitchentable.com. So it's a Louise's, but no apostrophe or anything. You don't have to put that, but it's the louiseskitchentable.com. There is a blog on there, and I do post recipes. You can sign up for my email. You can always ask me questions. My email address is louise@louiseskitchentable.com. And you can always contact me and with questions. I'm more than happy to share anything I possibly can with you. So, and if you want my raspberry swirl cheesecake recipe, again, I'm more than happy to share that with you. We published that in a cookbook a number of years ago that came out of the Santa Barbara City College culinary program. So it's definitely one I'm more than happy to share.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. So thank you for everyone joining us. This is not goodbye for those of you who are here with us live, but I am going to stop the recording. And next month, we have Stephanie Valentine, Chef Stephanie Valentine, with us for a conversation. So join us then. Okay. Now.